Phantasialand is famous for its jaw-dropping theming, but how does its ride lineup actually stack up? From adrenaline-pumping rides to family favourites, this park has something for everyone, and in this video I'm going to break down which rides I would keep, which rides I would scrap, and any that are kind of take it or leave it. Spoiler, I'd keep a lot of them. Right, we're going to start with two of their headline attractions. The first one is the newest ride, and that is, of course, f.l.y. Now this thing is absolutely breathtaking. The immersion in that area of Rookburg, the whole theming, everything about it is stunning. Now this is a prototype flying coaster by Vekoma. If you've done flying coasters before, you've probably done something like Galactica, which is a B&M flying coaster. You may have done the less comfortable ones, like the f.l.y, also known as Hero at Flamingoland. That thing's a death trap. And then there is Vekoma did have a Flying Dutchman model, which I've not experienced personally. But this is their next generation, and honestly, when you see this thing, it does make you wonder why nobody has thought of this before, because the whole loading and unloading process is just second to none. Now, there's not a huge amount of footage of this. I think there is some footage from Theme Park Review. I believe they got special permission because typically to get on this ride you have to go through metal detectors, and therefore there is no cameras allowed. But basically what happens in the station is that you get in this ride in a seated position with the track behind you, which is kind of novel. And then when the ride starts, you go along through this pre-show sideways, and then it just twists you up into that flying position, and it is extremely comfortable. Now this thing is honestly second to none. You actually get airtime on a flying coaster, which I didn't think was possible, but it is, and it is fantastic. It has two launches, and they are reasonably punchy, and it is a very long ride, but not long in a drawn out sense, long and paceful. It is so good. And honestly, I've done it maybe nearly 10 times now, and I still can't find my way around this thing. So it is just a maze of track. When you see it off-ride, it is stunning. And then the key thing, of course, going back to that load and offload, is first of all, they actually have a separate offload section to the onload section, but as you get into the station, it twists you back into that seated position. So if for any reason there is a delay in the train in front, you're in a comfortable seated position, unlike something like Galactica where you're left dangling. So no surprises that this first attraction is 100% a keep. So the next attraction, again, one of their headline attractions, is Taron over in Klugheim. And pretty much the same as with f.l.y, this thing is a visual masterpiece. It interacts with itself so many times, and it is just a bonkers ride. Now it is not the most forceful or the most spectacular of Intamin's rides. There are certainly better rides further on that they've made since, but it is still spectacular. There's multiple launches on this thing, and the second launch in particular has got this iconic sound that you hear from all over the park. When I stayed in the Hotel Lingbao, the first time I went there, all I could hear constantly was just that vroom, vroom, vroom. It is just amazing. The theming is on point. The one thing I would criticise about this ride is that at night time, the trains aren't lit up. I think that would maybe add a little bit to it. But other than that, this thing is fantastic. And of course, with true German efficiency, they are absolutely throwing the trains out, so fantastic. That said though, I did do the single rider, and it's one of those where there's not a huge number of single seats available, so it actually took me as long to go through the single rider as it did through the main queue. So just bear that in mind if you do choose to use it. But otherwise, this thing is definitely a keep. The next one I've got is a pair of coasters, and that is their Maurer spinning coasters. Maurer spinning coasters. These things are phenomenal. Again, everything about this park is stunning, and these things look great off-ride, but they ride great as well. What's a little weird about them is they have a number of trick elements that I don't think exist elsewhere, or certainly I've never experienced. If you've never been on these and you don't want spoilers, then maybe skip a little bit ahead. But effectively, one of the rides has a seesaw track, one of them has a sideways seesaw, they both have a bounce track, and when you leave the station, you go into an elevator and get shot up before the first drop. So there are lots and lots of trick elements. And when you see this compared to something like Spinball at Towers, or even Dragon's Fury over at Chessington, this is just a cracking set of these spinning coasters. And again, no surprises, I'd keep them. So the next attraction I've got is one that many people probably miss, and that is Hotel Tartuff. Now this is on that kind of main strip in Berlin, and you could easily walk past this if you did not know it was there. In fact, I think we did the first time I visited, and then I was like, oh, what's that? It is basically a kind of fun house, but it is a fun house that is suitable and enjoyable by adults as well as children. It is just crazy, it is bonkers. It's got all the stuff you'd expect, you know, turntables, walking through some kind of like bags, like heavy bags, rollers on the floor, there's a big slide at the end. Like, it is just absolutely crazy. And you will definitely enjoy it. So don't miss it if you do visit the park, and I would definitely keep it on their lineup. Just along the road from Hotel Tartuff is Au Chocolat. Now this is a interactive dark ride. If you've ever done Toy Story over in Florida, it's basically the same thing in that it is a train with 2 seats facing forward, 2 seats facing back, and a gun. Now and it's a sort of drawstring gun. In the case of this one, they are made out like pastry bags, and you're basically going through this bakery and shooting all these mice. It is great fun. It is 3D, but not like... My partner has motion sickness. She was able to watch this one. Quite often she takes the glasses off for 3D, but she was fine with this one, so it's not that bad. It is a very, very long ride though, and it's quite sore in your arms if you're absolutely firing that gun off. So there was definitely times where I was like, oh my god, has this finished yet? Not in a, this is boring, just in a, oh my god, my wrist is killing me. But it is fantastic nonetheless, and definitely very, very immersive. So guess what? Keeping this one as well. And heading back over to Klugheim, there's a second attraction there. And actually, Klugheim is the only part of the park at the time of filming that has single rider queues. And the other attraction is Raik. Now this is a family boomerang, and to be honest, there is nothing special about this one. It's a fairly standard boomerang. It does interact with Taron, which is fantastic. Look, it's great for its target audience. If you've got little ones who aren't on the bigger coasters yet, they'll absolutely love this. But for me personally, I'm gonna put this one in the take it or leave it pile. And the next attraction kind of caught me off guard the first time I did it, and that is Colorado Express. Now on the face of it, you go, it's a mine train. How good can this be? And actually when I was there recently, I did it with a friend who was like, and then he got off and he went, that is crazy. It is absolutely bonkers. I have never seen a mine train like this. It potentially even gives Big Thunder at Disney Paris a run for its money. It has 3 lift hills, it has sections that are completely in the dark and you have no idea where you're going. I genuinely don't think it's got a big enough clearance envelope, so when you're in the dark, keep your hands to yourself, because I'm pretty sure you'd lose a hand if you didn't. It is just absolutely bonkers, and it is quite a long ride, but again, not in a, oh my god, I wish this was over, in a, this is fantastic. So definitely, if you are going, you have to get on Colorado Express, and yeah, I'd keep this one as well. Another one of their major coasters is Black Mamba, and this one's interesting, because you kind of, for the most part, you don't see the ride, right? You can see the lift hill, and if you go right into the back of the kind of Africa area, you can find chunks of the track and see it. But generally speaking, it's pretty well hidden, other than this loop that goes over the bridge that you walk across, which is quite a nice little element. So you literally walk through the loop. But it is basically their B&M inverted coaster. And I would say it gives Nemesis a run for its money. I do love Nemesis, but this thing is very, very intense. It's not the best from an operations point of view though. For the rest of this park, again, as I said earlier, German efficiency, they absolutely throw out the trains. But for some reason, this one, not so much. And I don't quite know why. Having said that, it is a great ride. It does run on 2 trains, although it is, as I say, it's pretty slow. But it will definitely give you a great experience. So another one that I'm gonna keep. Now, there's a flat ride in this park that is very, very well known. And many people who probably have never heard of Phantasialand have seen this ride on social media, and that is Talocan. Now it's just a Huss topspin, and as many of you will know, we're getting a Huss topspin in Alton Towers in a couple of months' time. But if it is anything like Talocan, we are in for something special, because this ride is absolutely stunning. Again, they have themed even this flat ride to the hilt, like it has this immersive kind of stone backdrop. There is water effects, there is fire effects. It is a really, really intense cycle. In fact, it was quite intimidating for me the first time I visited the park, and I actually didn't think I was going to go on it. In fact, for the first 2 days, I just looked at it and went, there's no way you're getting me on that. And then I did go on it, and I absolutely loved it. And I went on it recently when I went with my partner, and she felt sick just watching it, let alone actually going on it. So no surprises, I'm keeping this one too. Now this park does hold a record, and that is for the world's steepest log flume. That is Chiapas. Now, this thing is, yet again, another crazy ride. Again, very, very long, very, very well themed, and absolutely bonkers. Now, I went on this a couple of weeks ago. Now, at the time of filming, this is January, so it's cold. And somebody had told me, or I'd heard online, that in the winter months, they adjust the depth of the water so that it's not quite as wet. There's many attractions around the world that do this. Turns out, Chiapas is not one of them, because I got absolutely drenched. I mean, soak it. Oh, these are gone, absolutely gone. and my feet were lumps of ice. So if you are going to go on this in the winter, wear good shoes, or don't go on it until it's warm. In any case, it is a fantastic attraction. It is very immersive, very well themed, backward sections with disco lighting and all sorts of stuff. It's just crazy. So apart from wet feet, I'd keep this one. It's a style of attraction that typically gets a lot of hate from most people, and that is a VR roller coaster. Now, I have only experienced one, and that is Crazy Bats in Phantasialand, and I have to say, it is fantastic. Now, I can't speak to the other VR coasters because I've never ridden them, and I'm hoping to do some out in Europa Park later on this year. But this one is fantastic. It is such a great story. There's basically, you're going around this sort of mansion with these bats, and then there's like, you go outside and there's like a bomb and it's about to go off, and it's quite a lengthy ride. You definitely get your money's worth out of the attractions in Phantasialand. They're not that short. I am curious about this one though. Again, my partner, motion sickness, she was fine with the VR. It was when she took the headset off that she found the motion sickness. Seems a little odd. But I'm curious what it's like to ride this without the headsets, because there are people who choose not to put the headset on. And my expectation here is that this is purely pitch black, you can't see anything. So a bit like Vogel Rock over in Europe, in Efteling. But maybe it's not, maybe there is some light, I don't know. I've not experienced it without the headset, but I would say with this VR headset, it is a fantastic attraction. And this keep list is getting bigger, because I'm gonna keep this one too. Now over in their China section, they have a Vekoma Madhouse. Now they call it Fung Ju Palace. An interesting one. I didn't get the backstory because it's obviously in German, and it's sometimes the pre-shows have subtitles, not the case here, so I don't know what the story was. Effectively, it looked like there was some sort of couple who had been separated, and then there's this warrior who's defending the woman, and honestly, the pre-show was a bit like Mortal Kombat. I actually expected at one point them to go, "Finish him," because it was just bizarre. The ride itself, it's not the best Vekoma Madhouse, to be honest with you. There's this weird kind of grey screen at the top, which at the very end they project something onto, but throughout the ride you see just this plain grey screen and it just looks odd. So believe it or not, this is actually an attraction that I would scrap. I would get rid of it because I just don't think it fits in with Phantasialand. Now, the park's got a drop tower and it's kind of well hidden. I mean, the tower itself isn't. You can see this big towering castle thing from all around the park, but you wouldn't necessarily know what's inside it. It's called Mystery Castle, and I guess to some it is a mystery because you go into this thing and you're like, what is it? It is a set of 6 drop towers inside. Now, I've been on it multiple times and I've never seen all 6 in use. I've seen different selections of them used, so I guess they rotate round. Even when it's busy, I didn't see them using the full 6, which seems a little odd. Now, it runs a couple of different cycles, and from what I've heard, it switches around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a bit like Drayton Manor with Gold Rush. There is a short cycle, there is a longer cycle. The short cycle is quite underwhelming. It is over far too quick. So, you know, if you can go on it later in the day, then hopefully you will get that longer cycle. And that longer cycle is absolutely bizarre. It shoots you right the way up. It's pitch black, you're indoors, you have no idea how tall this thing is. And when it's coming back down again, there's a little bit of light and you look up, it's quite a tall tower. But it shoots you all the way up to the top. There's this kind of blue lightning effect thing, and then they start shaking, and then they all drop at different times. It is fantastic. So as far as drop towers go, this thing is definitely up there, literally. So I would say that this is another keep. Now, the park has another water ride. It's their kind of rapids at River Quest. Now, my recent trip, I didn't go on it because it was closed for the winter season, as you would expect, although Chiapas was open, as I said. But I have been on this before, and it is certainly a fairly extreme river rapids ride. You get in it initially, you leave the station, you go around a corner, and then there is an elevator, which I don't think I've ever experienced on a rapids ride. Takes you up quite high, and then there are a number of fairly steep drops. Now, when I went on it with my daughter, I was on with a bunch of Germans, and my daughter and I got wet, and nobody else did, so all the Germans laughed at us. But yeah, it is a fantastic rapids, and it's quite compact, which I think is why they shoot you up this lift to start with, because they don't have enough time to kind of slowly take you up to height, and then you come back down fairly rapidly as well, as I said. So listen, there's a lot of keeps in this list, and this one is in there as well. This next one is very strange. So again, an attraction you may miss, because you could easily walk past this and not even notice it's there, and that is Geister Rikscha, I think that's how you say it. Apologies if you're German and I've absolutely butchered that. Basically, it's kind of a ghost train. Quite a long ghost train. In fact, there will be a POV up on the channel at some point in a few months' time. But it is very, very long. It's an omni-mover ride, so think a little bit like Phantom Manor at Disney Paris or Haunted Mansion over in Disney. So it's just this constant running track of cars, same sort of shells that turn around and point you towards different scenes. It's very, very slow moving, which is why it takes so long. But the thing that is really weird about this is, for such a park that is so immersive and so well themed, I mean, this ride has been there for many, many years, but it is actually comical how bad the theming is in this. Like, all the animatronics are terrible, and it just shows you how far this park has progressed in terms of theming. So given the state of the rest of the park, this thing really feels out of place, and I would get rid of it. Now, there's a number of smaller kids attractions. I'm not going to cover most of them because I've not experienced them because I'm an adult, but there are a couple that I'll touch on. And the first one, I'm probably going to pronounce this really bad as well, Wellenflug. Basically, it's their swings, right? As you go along Berlin, at the very end of that street, there is a set of swings. A little bit like Wave Swinger or Monkey Swinger that you've got here in the UK. Now, it does have a set of fountains around it, but unlike Monkey Swinger at Chessington, you don't actually get wet. It is just a visual spectacle, and it is that visual spectacle, as I say, as you walk along, because one of the main entrances to the park goes through Berlin, and then you go along this kind of main street, and it is waiting for you at the end. So it is definitely something you see when you first walk into the park, and yeah, I think for what it is, I would definitely keep it. It's an attraction I've been on in the past. I didn't go on my recent visit because I had quite a lengthy queue, so it's clearly popular. Now, another one of those attractions that is also in Berlin, and actually even closer to the gate, is the carousel. So kind of two-story carousel when you first come into the park, assuming that's the entrance, of course, that you use, and it is beautiful. Again, definitely very family orientated, quite an interesting selection of different vehicles in there. Some spin, some go up and down, etc. Some are stationary, but it is a beautiful carousel, especially at night in the winter event when it was all lit up. It looked fantastic. So perfect for that audience, and definitely one that I would keep. And the last family attraction I'm going to touch on is, I'm going to pronounce this really badly, Würmling Express. It's probably not Wormling because it's got umlauts above the U. Effectively, this is like one of those, think of the squirrel ride in CBeebies Land and Alton Towers. It's one of those kind of slow-moving attractions around the lower end of the park. Again, perfect for that family audience. I've been on it before, and it didn't leave any lasting memories with me, so there's not particularly beautiful scenes to see on the way around this. And I may just have a bad memory. Maybe it is better than I thought, but yeah, again, not the target audience for sure, but even for families, maybe little kids would love this, but certainly for families, probably a little bit on the boring side. So I'm going to put this one in the meh kind of category. Right, if I've done the sums right, out of the 18 attractions I've talked about, 14 of them are in the keep category, which probably tells you a hell of a lot about this park. It is absolutely stunning, and if you have never visited it, you really, really need to get it on your bucket list. And if you want to see my visit when I was recently there, or indeed the Charles Lindbergh Hotel, which I stayed in, I'll put those up here. See you over there.